Good evening, everyone, or should I say good morning. The Ranter is back to go into yet another one of his rambling diatribes of the news of the day. Since I haven't done this in a while, I think the last time I did this was the 1st of August, a lot has come and gone, and frankly, too much to go into one full video about it. And frankly, some of the stuff I just sort of passed through my mind because I had other things to think about, amazingly enough. So, instead of going through some sort of chronological order, I'm going to speed run through certain items to talk about until I get to the basis of why I decided to finally go into a rant. Because the last few weeks, I was getting the urge to rant, as I normally do, but then the urge subsided. Maybe real life concerns or other things going on that was preoccupying me. But last few days, that kind of the news and events kind of tipped the scale for that. So now here I am. But before we get into all that, let's go through a limited number of items before we get to that. First would be the vice president pick Joe Biden has decided to pick. Kamala Harris is now the VP choice that we're running with. Okay. Now, Joe Biden is not my first pick. He's not my second pick. He's not even my third pick to run for president. I have said this in numerous videos that probably his last best time to do so was 2016, and understandably he couldn't do it because of family concerns, tragedies. By 2020, we can see the decline he's going through. I'm not suggesting that it is as bad as some people suggest it is. I think there's some natural decline due to the age. That does not mean he has dementia or any of that, but still, there's a winding down, and but that's natural and that's okay. People are still up to supporting him because of that, or not because of that, but supporting him despite of that. Excuse me. Then that is the choice. Fine. He's not my he's not my first choice, which is the point. Now, I have said on social media, and I probably said on a video or two on here, that what would compel me to vote for him with any confidence would be his vice president pick. Because there is a gamble that, unfortunately, Joe Biden might not be up for a second term, be it that he physically cannot do it, meaning a tragedy will happen and we'll lose him, or he just cannot physically or mentally or emotionally, or a combination of all three, can't fulfill to go into a second term, or maybe finish off a first term. So the vice president pick that he would have done would be a compelling reason for someone who can quickly take up the mantle and be ready on day one to become president, even if they're vice president. And Kamala Harris is not my first pick for that either. Now, early in this process, Kamala Harris was looking promising. I wasn't on the hate bandwagon on her. I'm not really on it now. But I recognize that she has a lot of baggage, a lot of things that she has to answer for, that when the questions come up, they get kind of dodged. One of the things that infuriates me as a Democrat is the majority of the candidates that came up when they decided I'm going to run for president, had to immediately apologize and walk back things that they said or did. I mean, Christ, can't we have a candidate or multiple candidates in at least a primary process that doesn't have to apologize for something first? Be that as it may. But she was not my first pick simply because she does have baggage. She does have certain things that have gone on, especially from her time as a DA, and certain choices that she made to further her career. Now, in the official capacity, however, there's a lot of things are floating around about her and suggestions about her that has nothing to do with her job, nothing to do with the performance of her job, which should be the point of why you should accept or exclude her. But a lot of this personal social shit that is supposed to shame her and belittle her because of it. The slut shaming and sleeping to the top accusations, or whatever. Whatever she does in her personal life, that's what happens in her personal life. People can try to flip that around and say that, well, why can't you say that about Trump because of his sexual peccadillos that he's gone through in his life? That's on record, and he's already president. If that was such a problem for people, then they would have voted against him. Those who did voted against him anyway for all the other things that are going on in that bag of horrors that is Donald Trump. But for me, for someone who's a vast critic of Trump that doesn't much like him at all, what he does with his little mushroom is not on the list of grievances and horrible things that makes him a president. We've had presidents already gone by who were no angels, who were socially, deviantly not decent human beings, but they still did the job. John F. Kennedy has a vast history. Some of them he shared with his brother. Not at the same time, but, things happen. Marilyn and Robert and John. But they still did the job. That is not, the performance of the job was not affected by that. Bill Clinton still had his roguish side, still had his time to having his extramarital affair with an intern. A consensual relationship that violates his marriage. You hit the morality drum on that, but please don't look at the people who are accusing him and we're setting him up for impeachment, because Lord knows we wouldn't want to go into the background of Henry Hyde or Dennis Hastert, do we? It's amazing how the majority of those people were pointing the fingers and being so full of righteous indignation had their own little sexual skeletons in their closets. But again, be that as it may. So, the stuff that Donald Trump has done in that arena, from the Playboy Bunny and Stormy Daniels that he had while his wife Melania was pregnant, that has nothing to do with his job. That's just him being a scumbag. And being a scumbag and being a president, that crossed over in our history a lot of times. And a lot of people make the compromise of, he's a scumbag, but maybe, if we get him elected, then maybe he will drain the swamp, which he didn't do. But he will get you your precious judges, so you can have your way from the court for the next 30 or so years, because that was the thing we were banking on for having this moron here. Well, assume that's the case. Because, after 4 years of what you see and you still want to support him, there's gotta be something you're still hoping him for, that you're hoping that another justice, retires or keels off so that you can pack the courts. Because what are the things that you are getting out of this? I mean, outside of the pettiness of that gets them libs. So on the score with Kamala Harris and her relationships, that has nothing to do with the performance of her job. And it would not be a bearing on her being a vice president. or president if the day came. What she did as a DA should be something that you want answered for, questioned. It's one of the shining moments, the fleeting shining moments of Tulsi Gabbard at that debate, when she went after Kamala Harris and she pretty much silenced her with questions of her past as a DA and what she did to people that she was accusing of crimes and was trying to prosecute, and downright some of the sleazy things that came and went through that she can have the blame laid on her, or at least the accusation of it laid on her. See, those are official things that affects the job. That would be the things to be concerned about, not if she slept her way to the top. Jesus Christ. And, people like defend it and say that they're not misogynist when they bring that up. Sleeping the way to the top is, by definition, a misogynist term and phrasing, because by simple logic, through the last 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years of this concept existing, how many men would you say slept their way to the top in all that time? I'm sure perhaps some did, but in those cases the boss was probably not a woman. So the basic terminology of this and how this became part of our lexicon and phrasing is pointing towards a woman, a successful woman, and dismissing how she got there. If she got there righteously, through education and experience and knowing what the hell she was doing, dismiss all that. Oh, she must have banged someone to get her job. Say, if you can say that Kamala Harris slept her way to her job, then claim you're not being misogynist about it, then you're having a self-denial issue, because that is what that means. My choice was actually Tammy Duckworth to be picked. I know there were other names out there, Stacey Abrams. I know people are high on her. She's impressive. She almost did it in Georgia, but I think outside of the the political wonks, all of us who live on news media and the under the ground news media of the YouTubes, that people like live on like air. How many people outside of the Beltway and outside of us political wonks knows who Stacey Abrams is? She has promise, and she has time. Not probably, she has plenty of time to become a national figure, national name. But the same thing is like so many of the candidates that ran for the Democratic position for president. A lot of them had local star power, but a lot of them were not nationally known, national names. I liked initially Amy Klobuchar, but she was not a national name. Gillibrand only became a national name somewhat because she buried Al Franken and sacrificed him on the altar of high ground during the not even an investigation, the accusation phase of what Al Franken supposedly did. And it's only supposing, even though there was enough evidence, because there was no real due process involved. So it was just gut him, throw him by the wayside. But that was how she made her name, and what she stood on his body on that altar to run for president. This is not a shocking thing. A lot of people in politics have done this for many, many, many years. But that's where that went. And she paid for it through the donors that did refuse to support her because of what she did to Al Franken. But Tammy Duckworth interest me for the VP run because, quite frankly, someone who is an actual legit war vet who was severely injured when your helicopter went down, I would love to have seen Mike Pence try to debate his way of saying Donald Trump is good at anything with the military when Tammy Duckworth is right there, and she's not afraid to fight anybody. She's not afraid to bring up Cadet Bone Spurs. And there's plenty that she has said over the years on Donald Trump, and recently, yeah, I'm sure there's plenty more. That's where that came from. But no, Kamala Harris. That is the cards we are dealt. So fine. On this, last few things I'm going to say about this is Joe Biden, even though he has a lot of drive, he is ahead in many of these polls, is not going to energize people. There'll be plenty that support him because of nostalgia, that still sees a shadow of Barack Obama and thinks they're going to get 4 to 8 years, if there's even going to be 4, of the Obama years back, transmuted into Joe Biden. Try to make us move backwards from this era of Trump. But my gentle snowflakes, I must explain to you that there is no going back from the era of Trump. I mean, we can go into detail as to why that is, and the cataclysm it is that Donald Trump as president and what he has done as president, because you set the man aside and all the scumbaggery that he's done. He could have been an isolated thing where he could have just sat there, rubber stamped whatever the Republicans wanted him to rubber stamp, and then do his tweeting and all that bullshit. But he kept talking and kept doing actions that were so horrific and beyond the pale that any Republican would gasp at, that represents them. Well, Republicans before Trump, that is, excuse me. Because the party of family values, of morality, of God, of guns, of army, of military. So many of them fall in line with Trump as sycophants, that whatever values that they champion and they cherish and they scream from the rafters for, that wasn't needed anymore. None of that's needed anymore. Whatever they can blame Bill Clinton on in a consensual relationship, they will ignore what they see in Donald Trump in his list of accusations. There's a meme out about Pat Robertson where he scolded Michelle Obama for wearing a top that was sleeveless and she was showing her arms. How immoral that was. But then Melania Trump's naked spread? Oh, that's a work of art. The finest of what a first lady ought to be. What the fuck are you talking about? And that's not even getting on Melania for that, because that was her choice. That's nothing negative about that. That's not slut-shaming. That's none of that. But it is hypocrisy to go after Michelle Obama for bearing her arms and then just shrugging Melania's various naked spreads as if that's just beauty. I mean, that's what we have, is that we have just excuses and excuses and excuses. So that is the problem. It's not just Trump. This is why we can't go back. Because all these Republicans who have sacrificed themselves to bolster up, prop up Trump. They're hoping to God he turns dictator because they are not going to have a job after he's gone. Because people will remember, as they remembered Lindsey Graham, who, before the 2016 election, where he said Donald Trump was a kook, that he was a race-baiting bigot, and they will bring down the Republican Party, and they chose to pick him, they will deserve it. And then he became Trump's caddy. And then he became his biggest cheerleader. Same with Rand Paul. It is amazing that the one person that shows consistent backbone against Trump is Mitt Romney. And he was such a wet noodle in 2012 that we can go find a video of his flip-flops on various issues from him, from governor on up. But he stands firm against Trump. He was the only one that supported impeachment of Trump. Well, integrity. It exists everywhere. But that's the problem. Even when Trump is excised from the White House, be it in this election or in 4 years, he has stained and destroyed the Republican Party. You can't say that this is the party of Lincoln. You can't say this is the party of Teddy Roosevelt. You can't say this is the party of Dwight D. Eisenhower. You can't say this is the party of Reagan. You can't even say it's the party of George W. Bush. This is Trump's party now. All that tradition, all that heritage, all those values are all easily negotiated away in order to prop up the dear leader. Because if he goes down, they go down. Maybe not all together, maybe not in this single election. But the Trump value, the 4 years that we've seen Trumpism, and if he goes down because the majority of the people in this country see this Trumpism and sees it no longer a point where they can compromise away and keep him in office to shortchange him out, they will see these Republicans who prop him up. They will see the Lindsey Grahams, the Mitch McConnells, who all, frankly, are in races where they shouldn't be close, but they're quite close. You're going to see these people who will defend every little tweet. They will ignore every little insult. They will just shrug their shoulders. They will hide their heads when the press are out there, waiting for them in the hallway, and they just shuffle on by, shuffle on by. So, yeah, that is one of those things that people are going to have to understand, that when they're going into this election, be it they mail it in, go to the drop boxes, or actually show up on election day, it's not just Trump. If you're against Trump, please think of the down ballots. Please think of the Senate. Please think of the House. Think of all these people who are supporting, propping Trump up, defending him, protecting him, at the expense of the best interest of their own constituents. You and your values don't matter to them. They will pay you the lip service every election cycle, but do they do what you want them to do? Or are you just content that they say what you want them to say? Alright. Enough of that. We're going to continue on in this vague timeline because, again, I'm not all that. So we have the Democratic Convention go by. The online convention, where it's a bunch of, bunch of Zooms, bunch of testimonials, no audience. That's fine. I didn't watch any of it. Because again, I'm not energized by Joe Biden. None of that really interests me. I saw a little bit of the Michelle Obama speech, which was pretty good. I saw the roll call. I like that because it's just, you just see the diversity of our country in our territories because they left nobody out. Um, I remember that AOC endorsed for presidency Bernie Sanders, and people were all up in arms about it. First of all, she seconded the nomination of Sanders. A guy beforehand did it too, so she seconded it. And for those people who grew up, who flip their shit over this, this is a procedure. This is not some shocking surprise. This is not a slap in the face of anybody. I am pretty sure Biden knew it was coming, and he was probably okay with it. Because first of all, it's symbolic. It means nothing beyond the symbolism. Doesn't change the numbers, and he still has the nomination. So, okay. She was able to say her piece, even though it was a minute. But it was symbolic. There was nothing wrong with it, and they moved on. But whereas in the Democratic Party they had elected leaders show up to do their testimonials and do their support for Biden or Sanders, the RNC in their convention, which I also did not watch, because when I want to see a carnival in a circus, I want to see a good one. You get the kid who was smirking in front of the Native American, pardon me, and he won his lawsuit because he was smirking, and people jumped on his case about it. He's a little asshole, but they didn't need to go that far, and since it's always bad to overreach, then they paid him for it through the lawsuit. So, good job there. Yeah, so he got to speak. The couple that were waving the guns at the Black Lives Matter protesters that were just walking by, wasn't even threatening their property, wasn't even getting on their property, but they're waving their guns around. Yeah, they're getting issues with their local government on that and local prosecutors. Yeah, that's going to go nowhere. And they get their 15 minutes of fame, so they're in the RNC convention. You've got the usual suspects of Trump sycophants: Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, Melania did her speech. Trump did a speech every night, talking about how scary Joe Biden's America is, how scary Joe Biden's America is, how people are going to. What the hell did Matt Gaetz say? It was something about they're going to. And I mean Joe Biden and his evil cabal of Democrats and liberals is going to what? They were going to make sure that MS-13 was your neighbors. They're going to rent their houses by you, and then they're going to indoctrinate you or kill you or sell you drugs or I don't know, make you sock puppets. I don't know. I don't know what the race baiting bullshit was because I frankly wasn't really watching. I just hear the highlights of this, and just this white fear that they're trying to push is just incredible for 2020. I mean, just a segue from this for a second. I mean, what in the past month, 2 months have we been hearing from Trump? How it's so sad that we're losing our history because they're tearing down Confederate statues. And how much of a disgrace it is in NASCAR that they're not doing the rebel flags anymore. Yeah, this New Yorker gives a shit about that. Yeah, he gives a shit about anything. You believe that he does. First of all, statue thing. We have these amazing things. They're just called books. And sometimes these books contain history. And these histories are still going to be there. And they'll still be taught in schools. You know, the places that you're pushing people, you want to push the kids in immediately in in-person teaching, regardless of there being a pandemic or not. We'll get into some of that in a minute. I'm ranting on various subjects here. So, bringing down these statues isn't really affecting history. Because, hate to break it to you, how many statues of King George III do we have running around in the 13 colonies these days? Is there anything left? And since those statues went down, did we forget that we were once a part of the British Empire? Did we forget that? Did we forget our own revolution? Because there's no more statues to look at? Cut the shit. And then the rebel flag thing, that fucking little snot rag? Really? He doesn't want military bases to change their names for the Confederate names on them? Because, what, you can't do Grants, Shermans, McClellans, Sheridans? I mean, what is this attraction to traitors for those who are favoring of the North in the Civil War? We have all that. That was the one end, and you know, all that is his way of trying to court, excuse me, the white male vote. Well, gee, since he's so favor of Confederate statues and he likes them Confederate flags, and gosh darn it, he just has my best interest at heart. So I'll gladly vote for him. Yep. I don't know where that came from. But that is a lunacy. That's how he's going to cater the white male vote. Will some people go for that? Of course they're going to go for that. Not all of them. Not all of them. And how was he courting the white women vote? The suburban white women vote? You know, the demographic that might not find it too funny that he grabs them by the pussy? Well, fear not, ladies, because we know you're just biting your nails and clutching your pearls and fearful that low-income housing was going to come to your neighborhood and destroy your suburban American dream. AKA, you know, making sure those blacks and Hispanics and, hell, low-income white folk who also live in low income housing, they won't be in your neighborhood. Thanks to Trump. He will save you from other demographics. I saw an article that was kind of with a meme, but more along the lines just a picture of this it's actually a video. It was 1950s neighborhood who was so proud of their whiteness in their neighborhood that they want no black person in their neighborhood. This is what Trump is thinking that white women in suburban communities is hoping and praying we go back to. So that's how he's catering to you ladies. Okay. So there's that. We got the virus. We're at 185,000 dead now. 6 million plus cases now. And we turned a corner, according to the Trump administration, where we see the light at the end of the tunnel. We did such a bang-up good job. No, we didn't do a bang-up good job. Excuse me. The president did a bang-up good job. He saved your lives. By making our country #1 in cases, making sure we are #1 in deaths. He didn't make sure, but his lackadaisious, not giving a shit, and trying to personalize yet again something. So if you're wearing a mask, that must mean you're against Trump. He actually said that shit. you're not up for hydroxychloroquine, then you're against Trump. If you're not up for him sarcastically mentioning injecting yourself with disinfectant or irradiate yourself with light, then you're against Trump. If you believe the scientists over me, then you're against me. So, we find out that he sort of backed off on the whole COVID-19 task force. And now he's talking to a new guy who's now his head doctor, who's going to be the mouthpiece, who wants to not do so much testing, to have us do the herding. So you get the herd immunity, so he gets everybody together, people get infected, and then, the antibodies, build up over time, and that's how we're going to cure it, right? One thing about this particular doctor, he has no study in infectious diseases. So we're going to kick Anthony Fauci to the curb. Someone who's been in the study of infectious diseases, who's been on call for a number of presidents, and has combated things like AIDS and Ebola and pretty much everything else that's come down the pipe between then and now. Yeah, bye, Tony. We'll just let this guy take over, because like the CDC and their new guidelines, now that they're Trump friendly, then now we can support that now. The CDC is also pretty ridiculous in how we're reversing ourselves because of new guidelines. We had said multiple times at the start of this whole thing, wasn't Trump's fault. You can't blame any of these world leaders for a pandemic and how, but his response to it and subsequent mistakes, errors, contradicting information, is personalizing it, so it's either his way or you're against him. It has nothing to do with the virus anymore. That is his blame. And we're still going at it. We're still in this. We see when schools start coming back on here, there was that one Georgia school that a kid took pictures and video of the crowded hallways of kids going back and forth to class, and only a few of them actually wearing masks. That kid got some consequence from the school, and they threatened the student body not to take any pictures, not to do any videos. Well, that kid pretty much saved everyone's lives and kept them from being infected too much. Because after that became public, and they kind of changed their idea of having in-school learning. But that kid got death threats over it. So, good job, rational people. What is the right or wrong thing here? We don't know. Because first of all, we're not getting actual accurate information. Because whatever information that could be accurate is contradicted because that's politically advantageous to do so. Set that aside. We've been in a constant state of protest. Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Al Jacob. We're getting actions and reactions. It's funny. that we see this stuff happening. Imagine what it's like if we didn't. If we did not have a 24-hour news cycle, we did not have the internet, we did not have people with camera phones. Like, let's say 40 years since the year 2000. I mean, how many people at the age of Rodney King knew that such police brutality existed? Outside, of course, the black community. How many times that someone of this community, or others, who could have pled and begged for help, for the equality, for the dignity, and they go unanswered because no one believed them. They didn't want to hear it. You know, just make excuses. But now we see it. We see that in a time of protest, where people are protesting police brutality, police responds with brutality, with no feeling of irony or hubris. It's incredible. You think of like, say, politicians who say the wrong thing these days, or they say something behind a closed door meeting and someone's recording it. And, you know, it's no big deal for this say this bullshit, you know, before the time of the 24-hour news cycle and the internet, where this thing will get out and go viral and be global, knowing what the fuck you just said. And in 2020 or 2014, 2012, any of this shit has been happening for a lot of years now. I mean, go back to Mitt Romney and his 47%. You would think the police would then try in any of these communities, be it a national, you know, bulletin towards everybody, or at least some of these places that has a history of you know, no one's looking, let's just kick them a little bit more, would calm that shit down during a time of protest. But no, we're getting more and more of these incidents. We now have a new one where the poor guy was out of his goddamn mind, being on drugs, perhaps. Who was found naked, and they put the rag over his head, and then they restrained him on the ground until he stopped moving because he died. He was physically dead on the ground. And by the time he got to the hospital, he's brain dead. And the body cam showed that they were laughing it up. They were making fun. They were making jokes. While this guy was out of his mind. The events happening with Jacob. Has he resisted arrest? Somewhat. So he deserved to die? It was a violent thing that they were self-defending themselves against, was him turning his back and walking away. You couldn't tackle him to the ground from behind. I'm not saying that they didn't think he deserved to be arrested. No. He didn't deserve to die. That's what I'm saying. He deserved to have a cop so enraged at this show of defiance. You know, he wanted to make sure that he got his shots off, so he grabbed him by the shirt and shot him 7 times. Thank God he's alive. Paralyzed, but he's alive. First time in the hospital, they had him in handcuffs because, you know, he could go somewhere. Standard procedure. I'm aware, but still, fucking hell. They took that off. Donald Trump went to Kenosha. He didn't go see Jacob. Now, there's some issue of, you know, the family wanted a lawyer there, and he thought that was disgraceful. He thought that wasn't fair, so he didn't show up. Joe Biden went to Kenosha. Before he talked to anybody, he went to see Jacob and the family. You know, one little moment of decency and humanity. It doesn't have to wipe away all the stuff that you might not like Joe Biden for, but it is a singular instant in a series of instances that contrasts him with Trump. Trump goes to Kenosha. It's all self-serving, as always. He wants to have a photo op with a business owner whose business was damaged. The business owner didn't want to have a photo op with him. So Trump gets the former owner to stand there as if he was the owner. Okay. Okay. Because, again, self-serving. It's all about image, the optics, for him. Doesn't really give a shit what's going on. And then you got Kyle. Now, Kyle, we're having the debate on social media. The two major camps when it comes to little Kyle. Either he is a murderer of 2 people and a wounder with his big old overcompensating gun of his, or he's in self-defense and he's a hero, and Zane Coulter says that he should run for president. There's video out there that can support the claim of self-defense. The kid should get charged, and if he wins by self-defense, I won't be surprised. Because if the evidence goes that way, it goes that way. That's what happens. There's evidence on the other side, suggestion of evidence on the other side that the first person he shot wasn't really threatening him. He's throwing shit at him, talking shit, daring him to shoot him, and Kyle, who was a scared kid, shot him. And then he gets chased. Then he gets attacked by the guy with a skateboard. And then he gets shot. And then he sprays and prays. And then he walks up to the cops. And they let him go. Hypothetically. Okay? You're a police officer. You're coming down the road, you're hearing reports of their protests and their riots, and there's shots fired. You see this guy show up, carrying an AR-15, throwing his hands up, but also hands up, then back down to his weapon, hands up, back down to his weapon. He's walking up to you. Do you let him go? Do you? Do you not detain him? Whether you arrest him or not is at that particular moment, immaterial. Do you take the gun away from him, you hold him in position till you figure out what's going on? Or do you let him go? Because for me, that is what pisses me off. Because if Kyle was defending himself, he was defending himself. Okay? Fine. I don't give a shit upon when the people will rush to Kyle's defense and saying the people that he shot and killed had records. I don't care about that. It's the same thing as I posted, there was a picture that was pretty much doctored of the guy who was a Trump supporter who got himself killed. Who got himself shot by someone who was claiming to be Antifa, and now that guy is now dead because the police went to arrest him and something happened, now he's dead. But people were going after him because it was a doctored picture of him being in front of a Nazi flag and a woman is hugging him with like a Nazi armband on. So he's a Nazi, so therefore he deserves to die. No! He doesn't. The 2 guys that Kyle shot, that people say they have records, or they're pedophiles, they're sexual deviants, whatever. They think that they deserve to die. No! They don't. They don't deserve to die. No one in these situations deserves to die. Even going back to Jacob. Jacob didn't deserve to die. He certainly didn't deserve to be paralyzed. He didn't deserve to get 7 shots into him. Did he deserve to get arrested? Fine, he resisted arrest. Yeah, that's grounds to arrest him. Do that. None of them deserve to die. So you're a cop. You let him walk, or you hold him in position, you take the weapon away from him until you figure out what's going on. Especially when there are people up there shouting that he shot someone. You fucking kidding me? Find out that, he's part of a militia? Whatever. Whatever. He was cleaning up graffiti or helping up one of these stores? Fine. We find out that the police were thanking this militia for doing a damn good job and throwing water at them. Fine. You do all that. That's fine. That's fine. Same kid walks up to you with a gun and you let him go because he was, cleaning up graffiti? That you threw water at his head? Really? Here's the danger in this. We got a powder keg now. We've had a powder keg for years, but so far, the room where this powder keg, our United States, has kept itself humid, kept itself moist, so it would threaten to explode. Some moments would happen that it would nearly explode, but it hasn't exploded. People will get over shit. People get over tragedies and outrages and the horrible things that happen. Take it in stride. But here's the thing. Here's the danger in this incident with Kyle. Knowing that police just let him walk away. Anyone with a gun that thinks that they should go out and make America great again, or stand up against these Black Lives Matter socialists and anarchists and rioters and looters, or Antifa, they just saw this kid go out there with his gun in self-defense, kill 2 people, and the cops let him go home to his bed. Arrest him later, sure. Sure, he got arrested. Aren't you happy now? But they let him go home. Do you think there's people out there that have it in their heads to decide that they're going to help defend America against people who are rightfully protesting, and they carry their guns? And when the script gets flipped, and it's one of these protesters who is also armed, and he gets agitated to the point of killing, and we're going to demonize him, blame him, where this person who's on the other side, who is the one who got killed, was a part of a group that is known for the Northwest, Patriot Prayers or whatever the fuck, who decided to roll in their town like ISIS with their flags, but only their Trump flags, and shooting people with paint guns to agitate. You're in a situation that agitation leads to violence, and now it leads to death. Joe Biden pointed out there's a difference between protests, rioting, and looting. And good for him to do so. I was hoping somebody would do that. Because Trump's not doing that anymore. Not even pretending to do that anymore. They're all thugs now. All the protesters are thugs now. He stopped pretending before he decided to take his photo op at Lafayette Park. The day after he went inspecting the bunker because there were people protesting across his street. And then he did his little tear gassing so he can do his little fucking power walk. So he can hold an upside down backwards Bible in front of a church. I'm big and powerful. I did powerful things. And while those people who were protesting, who were peacefully protesting, get tear gassed, they get battered, get shield bashed, and some of them were reporters, and some of those journalists weren't even Americans. It caused an international incident when you had your people shooting at and bashing Australian reporters. But be that as it may. Problem is, it's going to escalate. Because our leadership doesn't give a shit. Joe Biden tries to show the empathy. Maybe the calming, confident voice of an actual leader, no matter where that voice comes from, will be the balm, at least put things on pause. Because Trump's not doing that. Mr. Law and Order. He's going to turn the police into the Nixon hard hats, and they're going to go beat the shit out of the hippies for daring to oppose their president. He gets the support from the police unions. Great. Because this is the same guy that told the cops during this 2016 campaign, when you get these protesters at my protests, at my rallies, don't be nice to them. When you get them into the paddy wagon, like they're paddy wagons anymore, but you get them into the car, rough them up a little bit. Just bang their head on the hood, and all the movie shit that you see, like in movies. And they like that. They like that. Not individual cops, mind you, but the generalistic opinion of they like that, right? He's on their side. You'll side with them over protesters. Side with them over those that may accidentally, killed them. A few bad apples, you suggest, that are in the cops? A few bad apples. Here's why that's an error. This type of police brutality is nothing new. It's not new to this century. It's not new in the last century. Only that we see it a lot more because, once again, 24-hour news cycle, camera phones, internet, worldwide connection in a matter of seconds. Any incident will get posted up and go viral. They didn't have that in the 1950s, 1960s, 40s, 30s, 20s, 70s. Any of these incidents could happen, and probably did happen, and no one ever knew. No one was the wiser, except for the victims and their families. But in those days and ages, who will listen to them, right? But why it's not bad apples? Not these individual bad apples. Why it's not that is because since this has been happening for so long, it's not a bad apple. It's a bad orchard. It's not bad seeds, it's bad trees. Because those beat cops back in the day that roughed some people up and beat the shit out of some people who were damn just about killed people went from beat cops, promotion to captain to commissioner. In all those years, they were protected by those who were like-minded. And when the next generations came on, they protected them too. Systemic racism exists. It exists because it has an infrastructure to allow it to exist. It goes all the way up. And it's not just the police departments themselves, it's in the prosecutors' offices. It goes up into the politicians, it goes up into the judicial judges. Because after all this time, this evilness can't be just small little tic-tacs of incidents across the country. It has to be a wide, just an octopus with so many tentacles throughout the area that has not only these bad cops, but these bad cops being protected either by people on high or through the apathy of so-called good cops who didn't want to get involved, who ducked their heads. I didn't see that. I didn't hear that. I'm not even looking in the same direction as while this guy behind me is putting his knee on a suspect or someone we're just holding for 8 minutes until he dies. There was a video that was captured. The police didn't know they were being filmed, where this police officer was wailing the fuck out of this suspect. His partner there didn't know what the hell to do. She wasn't getting involved in this. She wasn't joining in on this beatdown this her partner was doing. But at the same time, she wasn't pulling him away either. She was. You watch the video. She's behind her partner while the partner is just wailing the fuck out of this guy. I mean, he's like so serious. He pulls out his sunglasses and throws it aside so he can really get into this. And you see the woman's hands. The female cop. She keeps going to her belt as if she's about to pull either a gun or handcuffs out, but then stops. And she's just letting her partner just have his way with him. Is she involved in this incident? Yes. Is she actually assaulting this guy? No. No, she's not. But she is turning a blind eye. If there was no camera there, do you think she's going to write up a report about what her partner did? Or are they going to say that this guy who was just standing there when this whole incident started just was resisting arrest? What was he resisting? With words? Because in no way in this video do they show this guy, throwing a punch, throwing a headbutt, doing anything. He was standing there. And this cop beat the shit out of him against his fence. And before you just throw out the trigger that this is racism, the cop was black. Suspect was black. Unless the police is its own individual race, where it's not black, it's white, it's blue. If that's the case, and they just see this, they're just going about this like that, that is another thing we'll have to have a discussion about. So, now I'm over an hour with this, and I'm not done. We're not done. I haven't done this in a month, so we're just spanning. It's just consciousness. We have the powder keg, and these incidents are only growing. Incidents with police on protesters, protesters on counter-protesters. People are angry, and blood is being spilled. This is not melodrama. And this is not a warning of future things to come, because it's happening right now. Will the defeat of Donald Trump change that? No. Because it's not really about him. There are people that, I have debates with that say the Democrats are like coaxing the protesters to protest Donald Trump as much as they're protesting what the real point of what the protest is. Okay? Now, they're politicizing it. They have George Floyd's brother at their convention and all that good stuff. Okay, they do that? Yeah. Is it despicable? Sure, why not? But to not say that Donald Trump can also share some blame in this is ludicrous. Because as everything else, Donald Trump personalized the protest. Before he wanted his photo op and had his people tear gas the protesters away, he was already calling these protesters protesting George Floyd's killing thugs. He's already throwing out Antifa. Any of the violence has to have been Antifa. The Black Lives Matter or Antifa. When they're painting the mural of Black Lives Matter on on Fifth Avenue in front of his building, he called that hate speech. He has no empathy for the protesters. None. Because in this election year, he has to, once again, he has to garner the support of the police. So he always leans on their side on this. He barely mentioned George Floyd when the incident happened. He said one lukewarm statement about him. But then, when he got the good job numbers, he invoked the name of George Floyd, that George Floyd would be happy with the economy. Used a dead man for his politics. That's fantastic. That's great. So yeah, if people are protesting and they decided to throw Trump's name in the mix, he deserves it because he threw them in himself. Just don't like the response that he does? Yeah. Tear casting people away. Yeah. Sending out his DSH agents into Portland in their unmarked cars to pull people off the street, detain them, imprison them in the courthouse, and then let them go without writing up a single incident report, because Lord knows we wouldn't want any consequences. And these agents that he does this with are answerable only to the executive branch, to the presidency. That's for the Homeland Security. Had he sent the National Guard, which he can do, the National Guard would have to write up incident reports. The National Guard would have to be held to account and be subject to consequences for their actions. These agents show up not telling people who they are, not being identified other than being agents of the government, not answering any questions, leveling no accountability and no consequence. 2020 jackboots. Yay. Yeah. If people are going to protest and they decide to throw Trump's name in the mix, along with protesting the death of George Floyd, the death of Breonna Taylor, still, Breonna, no arrest there. We're still mulling over what we should do when the cops no-knock warrant their way into the wrong apartment and then shoot her in the bed. Now, we heard something interesting on that, too. Well, I'll just add to that we have, apparently there was a plea deal for her ex, that he would get a plea deal if he happened to tell the judge, tell people that Breonna was part of a drug syndicate. Obviously she was bad. If you say that, then we'll give you a plea bargain. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? This is not just, oops, we hit the wrong house. Oops, we accidentally killed the wrong person, as that has been happening too. No, this is them trying to clean up their mess to do bullshit to justify killing someone in their bed. But when they protest on behalf of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, and Trump's name gets involved, gets said, gets protested about, he deserves it. Because he threw himself into that mix. Don't blame Democrats for picking that up. Are they inciting that? I don't know. Maybe. But Trump did it himself. God's sake. The last thing we're going to discuss before the sun comes up is what Trump was saying about the military. Is the thing about that. Of course he denies it. Of course his, inner circle sycophants deny it. They're his witnesses saying it never happened. But when you hear that Trump had said that soldiers that die in these wars are losers and suckers. Do you hear his voice when you read that? Did you hear him say it in your mind? When you read the words on that article that said that he said that's the quote, did you hear him say it? I did. I heard it in that fucking little voice of his. And the maddening part is that I'm not surprised. Are you surprised? If it turns out to be true and he actually said that, would you be surprised? Now, a few things about this. This article from the Atlantic that Goldberg wrote, it gets corroborated by the Washington Post and the Associated Press, right? We don't, liberal rags, right? We don't throw those aside. But then Fox News confirms it. I'm sure the talking heads who give Trump his playbook at night, they don't say it. Sean Hannity, I'm sure, doesn't say it. Chuck Carlson said it, but the Fox News reporters, the news people, yeah. On that trip to France, they confirm it. Do they confirm everything? No, but at this point, it doesn't matter how much of the scale is, because the few things that he denied turns out to be flat out bullshit lies. So let's go through some of these. He said today in his denial that he wanted so bad to go to that event for the World War I commemoration where the other world leaders were going. He wanted so bad to go there. He called Melania at home at the White House to say that she wanted so bad to be there. Melania was with him on the trip. She was next to him. She wasn't in the White House. Lie. Couldn't possibly make it because of weather. Couldn't possibly get Marine 1 or 2 to fly in this inclement weather. Just no way. No way he could possibly do it. The other world leaders managed to make it. His surrogates that went there to represent us, they managed to magically make it. What do? Teleport? He drives all the time. He could have got there. there is enough of a good relationship between us and France, at least at that point, where they would make sure his motorcade would get there without a problem. Lie. He did not confirm or deny what he said about, or what he said to John Kelly while they were standing at the grave of his son. John Kelly didn't confirm or deny that. He didn't answer it. He has no comment to that. Where Donald Trump doesn't understand. He understands why people would go out to fight. Why would they risk their lives? There's nothing to gain. No big cash reward. No self-indulgent. What's in it for me? Which is in his mind. And we know it's in his mind. We've known for years and years and years. This is what he is. This is what he is. And you knew it when you voted for him, too. Either you hated Hillary just way too much, or you just didn't give a shit. Both, most likely. You knew it was there. You knew. But, whatever. Didn't confirm or deny that. John Bolton said he was on that trip. He didn't say anything of that. Sarah Sanders said she's on that trip. He didn't say any of that. It's an interesting side note with Sarah Sanders that is interesting. That someone came up that apparently Kim Jong gave her a little bit of an eye and was watching her. And so Trump laughingly says that she should go over to North Korea and take one for the team. Of course, we're going to deny that ever happened. And here's one of the things why I believe this is true. What he said about our fallen soldiers being suckers and losers. 2015, he did that sit-down interview and they talked about John McCain. Fast forward, 2020, as part of his denial, he denied ever calling John McCain a loser. 2015, rewind. He says John McCain was a loser. And the guy says he's a war hero. He goes, he's not a war hero. Yes, he's a war hero. He's a war hero because he got captured. You know, unlike people who don't get captured, okay? He does the thing where he's staring here because there's the camera there and the audience is there. The interviewer is on the side here, and he does this thing and he does, all right, okay. Okay, from my camera point of view. So he's like, that's how he's going to acknowledge the guy over there. He's like, okay. I hope this comes up in the debate. Because I already thought of it. I already thought of how perfect it would be. They bring up John McCain. He says he's not a war hero because he got captured. Say Joe Biden brings it up. And, you know, yeah, John McCain is a war hero. And he is a war hero because of the circumstances of his capture. Because, Donald, when John McCain was in the Hanoi Hilton, his captors knew who he was and who his father was. And so they bargained to let him go for whatever monetary concessions they were going to get. And they cleared it. John McCain was going to go home. John McCain refused to go home because he was not going to leave his fellow soldiers behind. That is why he's a hero. That is why he's a war hero. Now, imagine Joe Biden saying that, and Donald Trump in his desperate need to do some sort of quip, some sort of clapback immediately after this powerful thing is said. He says, "Well, I wouldn't have gotten captured." Something along those lines, right? Because he's a better person. He is a better person. He would never get captured. And Joe Biden would respond, "No, you know what's something, Donald? You're right. You wouldn't get captured because you didn't have the balls to go over there in the first place." And I would hope he would say balls. And that would get the applause. That would get the fucking A right from that crowd. No matter it was Democrat or Republican, that bullshit that people have been trying to swallow who are supporting Trump, that would have been an existential, cathartic release of finally someone just punching him metaphorically in that face. John McCain's a war hero because he didn't leave his fellow soldiers behind, and he took the same torture they did. He denied saying he was a loser. We know he did. The final lie in all these lies, the confirmation that, yeah, he thinks that soldiers who go out to war with nothing for them personally to gain, they are suckers and they're losers. That's why he moves them around the game board like the little green plastic soldiers. That's why he offered up our military as mercenaries for Saudi Arabia to protect their oil fields and their refineries from the Iranians. When he moved the soldiers out of Syria, and you're all clapping about that because, fuck the Kurds, right? He moved them down to Saudi Arabia to protect their oil fields. Around the same time while we're having our arms deal, should we even really say it's our deal? Or should we say this is Donald Trump's deal? Because is the American people or the American government getting any of this money from this exchange of our hardware, our military munitions, so they can be armed and use our munitions, use our weapons to kill Yemeni resistance, to use them to still crush and squeeze them because they're a satellite of Iran? Are we getting any money out of that? Because along the same time that happens, Jamal Khashoggi gets killed and dismembered. All signs points to MBS, but MBS as being part of our arms deal. Trump, nope. I'm not even gonna acknowledge that. Nope. Same thing he's doing when he's not acknowledging that Russians are putting bounties on our soldiers' heads in Afghanistan. Which gets confirmed by our military, the European intelligence, European military. Not one word about that. Not one word, even from Mike Pompeo, about Russian troops harassing an American convoy and causing an incident, a little skirmish. It injured some of our soldiers. Shh. Not a word about that. There was a great, there was something on Twitter. I'm going to try to paraphrase this because I'm actually getting low on steam here. Donald Trump was so angry that people thought that he was insulting the military, that he goes and insults General John Kelly over the fact that people think he insults the military. Pretty good. We have been in this crisis mode for a while now. Our protests, pandemic, 2020 has been a series of biblical plagues, it seems to be, either figuratively and literally. We had a massive inferno happen in Brazil, massive inferno happening in Australia, locusts happening in Africa. Now we have COVID. Some things happening to our magnetic field. You find that out, figure that out, explain that to me. Hurricanes are now spawning 2 at a time. 2 of them reaching the Gulf of Mexico and hitting us. There are 2 typhoons in the Pacific. 2 more are forming off the coast of Africa. And oh yeah, there's an asteroid that is supposed to come awfully close to the world in November. Those of you who don't believe, you're probably sleeping soundly. I don't sleep soundly, not because I believe or not, I'm just an insomniac. But if God is trying to tell us something, and maybe he has the next species ready to evolve, and we're now in the eight ball in front of the pocket as a species goes. This might be his way of letting us know that. People say that Trump was chosen by God. Maybe they're right. Maybe he's the one to usher us into the end times, if you believe that. But what do we do? Those who oppose Trump, vote. He's been screwing with the mail. You think he's going to screw with the mail? You know, his Postmaster General is. Postmaster General lied about, putting these machines back in. There was a widespread notice to the Postal Service not to speak with the press. Machines are not being put back. And some of these folk are defying their Postmaster General. A lot of these places that are voting in their local state governments to do mail-in voting, Trump says they're like coups, late night. So they're suing, they're suing, what was it, Nevada or Arizona? He's suing Pennsylvania because of their drop boxes. He wants them to remove the drop boxes. Mail is being affected by this. Of course, he doesn't give a shit. But however you can vote, vote. Do it. And it doesn't matter the location. Trump is trying to do a self-fulfilling prophecy in North Carolina where he suggested, if you don't trust your vote being mailed in, vote twice. Go to the polls. People are saying that's blown out of proportion. He was just riffing. That was just snark. Yeah. It's illegal in North Carolina to even suggest voting twice. So he broke the law in North Carolina. And it's a felony to do so. So don't do that. Vote once. Either show up and vote, or mail it in, or do absentee ballot. But vote. One. Don't do more. That. He lost the popular vote by 3 million. So we have our numbers on our side here. It's just the location. Trump has done enough in the Midwest and those states that he had won. He's pissed off enough people that perhaps, the bosses have had enough with Nikki, which is coined the phrase from Casino. But what I always thought, and I still think, as I say, going all the way back to when I first started this video, Joe Biden is not going to energize the vote. Kamala Harris is not going to energize the vote. They're not going to bring Trump down. Trump is going to bring Trump down. It's going to be his actions, his antics, his tweets, all the stuff that people had to swallow just to justify voting for him and not Hillary. Say what you will about Joe Biden, but as an establishment candidate, he still has the ability to compromise with Republicans, which no matter how anti one side or the other side, either you have to be far progressive or you're just part of the establishment and whatever, blah blah blah, whatever. If you're all one side or all other side, you're not going to compromise, and you will not get things done. Joe Biden can get the compromise done. He can draw Republicans. He did draw Republicans at the convention. But it won't be because of him that they will vote for him. It will be because of what Trump has done to that party. The party is not recognizable anymore. It's no longer, as I said, the party of Lincoln or Roosevelt or Eisenhower or Reagan or Bush. This new party has abandoned all its allegiances to the traditions, the values, the faith. They have sycophanted themselves to serving this president because they're desperate to make sure they keep his base in their voting bloc. Those who are fed up with that are going to vote for Joe Biden. And here's the thing about that. As I said, for the numbers, yeah, we have a majority, but they're not in the places that carries the electoral college. You need those flyover states. You need the places that Hillary did not go. That since there was no Democratic representation there to actually appear, so therefore that vacuum allows people to say whatever the fuck they want, Joe Biden can go there. He has, and he will. You get enough of these Republicans supporting Joe Biden in these states, those margins that went to Trump last time, small or large, will go to Biden. Because Trump's behavior and the example of Trump as president for the last 4 years, it's as much as a vocal majority of them go to Trump in the Republican Party, it's might not be enough if the minority is big enough in that Republican Party that goes, you know what, fuck this. In the end, if Trump goes down because Trump took himself out. And that is what I'm going to finish with at 6:16 in the morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, the ranter rants because the urge to rant is rising. And hopefully the next time it won't be in 1 month. Maybe I'll come back next week. Maybe. Or not. I don't know. I have a life. Somewhere. I think it's under the couch.